everybody, it's Jen and Lola, the wonder dog. Today I'm going to talk about some ways that you can fundraise for your wheelchair van and also some really important things to keep in mind as you're getting started. Stay tuned. Okay, so one of the things that I get asked very often, obviously because we do have a wheelchair van for my son, but then also being a social worker and advocate for people with disabilities, is the process that we went through for fundraising and for getting our wheelchair van. Sorry, I have hair on my face. It's quite a lengthy process and it's pretty exhausting, and it really certainly helps if you have somebody that you can talk to that has had experience in the field. So we actually recently got our second wheelchair van for my son. The first one was quite a number of years ago, and we knew that he was ready for an upgrade. He was becoming adult, he was turning 18, so we thought it was a really good time to get another one secured. What are you doing? Hey Lola. Oh yeah. So I'm just going to go through and give you some tips. I think I'm going to put the dog in the room because you won't be able to hear over the clicking of her claws. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back without the dog. So my first thing that I'd like to say is that you need to start this process early because it takes a really long time. As you can imagine, wheelchair vans are very expensive. They're probably the most expensive piece of equipment that you will ever buy for yourself, for someone else who has mobility issues, other than maybe a renovation for your house, which is also a major cost. It can be a major renovation. So start really early. The process takes a long time. Our last van, the fundraising, I would say took almost 2 years in total. And I'll go into later, we used many different means in order to raise the funds because it is quite a bit. The second really important thing starting out is to let others know that you're in the process of fundraising for the van. So hopefully you will have people offer to help. There's going to be many different things because you'll probably have many different ways that you're raising the money. So many different ways in which you can have someone help. So if they offer to help, write their name down. It may be that they're helping with a certain event, or maybe setting up a web page, or just something small that they can manage. That wouldn't obviously be the whole project, but you're going to need those people. Don't try to do this yourself. If you are in a situation where you need to raise a wheelchair van, chances are you're already exhausted and you're gonna just spread yourself thin trying to do this yourself. So the other super important thing to do when you're getting started is to find out what you're going to need for a van. So there's quite a bit of research that you should probably do before doing this. And there's two reasons why. One of the reasons is because you're going to have to know when you're going to have to get a quote so that when you approach for funding, or whether you're writing a donation letter and you need to put in an approximate quote in that. Now it may change by the time you're 2 years down the line and you're ready to purchase the vehicle, but you're going to need a quote because people will want to know roughly how much money you're trying to make and how you're doing it. The second reason, and it's super important, is that a wheelchair van is a huge commitment. And so once you have the van, you can't necessarily change the van. So if you've done all this work and you have this van in place and then you realize it's not suitable for your needs or what you want, My camera's having a hard time focusing. Anyway, then you're stuck with the vehicle and there's not much you can do at that point. So the other thing that's really important to keep in mind in finding out what you need for a van is determining what exactly it is that you need. So I'd recommend that you talk to other people who have needs similar to your own or your child's or whoever it is, your family member that you're getting the wheelchair van for, and ask them some questions when you do so. So ask them what they chose. If you can see it and try it out, that's even better. Most of us who've been through this process are very willing to show other people because we know how difficult it is. So ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. So ask what they chose. Ask if they would choose differently. So did it work for their needs? Is there anything looking back that they would have chosen differently? Ask them who they got the vehicle through or the conversion done through and what their experiences with that were. Also ask if they know of any upgrades or any technology changes since then that they know of. And that could be something you talk to the other company about as well, that perhaps they would consider that would make it easier. Sometimes just a couple of years go by and there actually are quite a few things that they have updated and that they may know about. So that's one of the pieces of your research. The other piece of the research is obviously to get an assessment. So whoever you're dealing with for a therapist, so occupational therapy, physiotherapy, you should be asking them to give a professional assessment. Some seating places will also do that for you. We had seen someone through a rehabilitation hospital who kind of walked us through what was available and whatnot. The nice thing is that they tend to be unbiased, or they may know what they know, but they're unbiased in the sense that they're not affiliated with the company who's selling the van. So the other part of the research, obviously, is to talk to the companies that sell the vans or do the conversions. Now, a word of caution with that, they do have a business and they are trying to make sales, and if they're a good company, they probably believe in their product or say that they believe in their product. So they will be inclined, most likely, to steer you towards the purchase of a vehicle from them. But you may find that perhaps they're not the best company. So we did have something that happened like that with us. The company only did a certain type of conversion. I just had a feeling in my gut that it wasn't the right kind of conversion for us at the time. I kept doing my research. I just thought it wouldn't. It was actually in relation to a side lift. And here we don't have very big parking spots for side lifts to accommodate. And I knew that I needed to be able to obviously park somewhere with the children and get them out and do everything. I didn't have someone else to help with that if I was taking them out by myself. So they tried to talk me into it, and I still thought this is not the best thing for me. So eventually I was able to find another company who did the back rear entry ramps. When I spoke with that company, they totally got it. The guy was phenomenal. Basically, the sales guy, he was phenomenal, but he knew what I needed, and he was great. And so we got that vehicle. Never ever regretted getting that vehicle. I know the side lift would have been just a nightmare. And so when we went to get our second van, we actually, I did the same. It was the same type of van that we went for, knowing that the rear entry worked really well for us. So just a word of caution there when you're speaking with them. We also we wanted to buy local in our home province, but what we found was that the prices were much more expensive. So when we looked around, we were able to find companies that were out of province that arranged all the shipping and everything. It was still much more affordable. And we actually did that the second time around too. I thought I was purchasing from a company local. My partner did some research, found another company, not the one we had gone with the first time, and it was, I think, $4,000 to $5,000 cheaper. And they also did a trade-in. They were able to do a trade-in of our original wheelchair van. So that was a huge it was a lot less money that we had to raise for that. So one of the other parts with researching the van is that you need to really know what the van needs to be able to do. So if the driver happens to be the person in the wheelchair or using the wheelchair, then they probably need to have complete independence. So they're going to need features that the van will open itself, that they can get in itself, depending on their motor skills. They may need hand controls, you name it. There's so many variations of what that person could need. So again, you really want to talk to the specialists involved and see what that is. A consideration with children. Our first van, we waited because there was some type of change they were able to do that they put in an extra seat, which we needed that extra seat because we have 3 kids and I was always carpooling, that sort of thing. So that extra seat was really, really valuable to us. And fortunately, the company that we went with the second one didn't do the layout the same way, so we lost that middle seat in the second row. There's benefits because my son sits up further, but we lost the seat, and it's kind of a pain because I'm still toting a lot of kids around, and I wish I had that seat. But those are all things to keep in mind of what you need, what your family needs, how long you're going to need it. Something else that I didn't mention was that you may be able to get a used van. Just use caution if you do, that you obviously know about the vehicle, that you aren't being talked into a vehicle that maybe isn't as good for you and your needs or your person's needs, because it happens to be more affordable. We had people that came forward with offers like that too, and we knew we needed this van to last a long time, and the ones that were available that were secondhand were not probably the best for us at the time. So obviously that's something you should look at. The other thing to consider when choosing your van or who you're going to go with for the company is that you can usually buy your vehicle already converted, or you can choose your vehicle and then have the conversion done. So depending on what company you deal with for that, some will only convert certain types of vehicles. So if you have your heart set on a certain kind of van, you may not be able to get that done, the work done with that type of van. Sometimes it's a space thing. Sometimes it's just what they're used to doing the conversions on. So you need to find that out. I really liked just having the whole shebang done. I didn't want to have to worry about buying a van and then doing it. The company that we dealt with actually secured the van that we wanted and then did it all, and it was all in the same price. But there's different ways to do that, and if you don't want to the painful part of navigating all of that, you may want to just find something that's already converted. So the second piece of what I wanted to talk about today, and I'll go into all these in future videos later in more depth, just for time today, I'm just going to skim through. So when you're looking at funding your van, I would count on having a multitude of funding sources. So it's probably not just going to be one funding source. You're going to have to take the time and really work away at many different things. And that's why you need those people who have offered to help, even if they can just help with one piece of this or at one moment. So one of the first things that you're going to look at, and I will go over for our Canadian ones later that I've dealt with, is any type of provincial, state, or federal programs. They may be programs that offer tax rebates for purchasing an accessible vehicle or for doing the modification, or there may also be another rebate if that's what you're purchasing the van for, is for accessibility. So that's one of your big pieces. However, in my experience, they don't cover a lot of the costs, so you're still going to have to rely on other means. So one of your means could be savings. In our case, savings wasn't really an option for a lot of people who have limited means and are already spending a lot more on other things for their disability. Savings isn't really a good option. One of the other things that you need to look at is involving or asking charity organizations for help. So there are some organizations, although they're few and far between, that actually do offer funding for specific projects to help with accessibility or with the purchase of wheelchair vans. They may be specific to the condition that you have. They may be specific to children. So that was part of the reason we sped up to apply for my son's while he was still in that child range before he hit 18. So you need to look at any of those charity organizations and see what is available. Another means, which probably isn't available to you at this point, but maybe in the future, is a registered disability savings plan. So that's something new that started, or relatively new that started in Canada, that people can put funds into this RDSP plan, and the government matches what we put in so that grows and that you can take that out in the future. So many of us who started those, we're not at the point yet where we can withdraw those funds. It has to stay in there for a certain amount of time. And I can go over in another one as well how to go through the process of setting that up. So in our case, I did set one up for my son a few years ago. We have put not a lot of money into it, but we've been able to access the grants and the bonds. And so the purpose in my mind for that RDSP is that will help fund his third wheelchair van. So it will go in there and grow in the meantime, and then we can draw from that. But you may have, if you wanted to take out of some other type of savings or RRSP, or they're not really intended for that, obviously you'd have penalties, but you could look at that. But setting up an RDSP is a really great plan for the future. Service groups. Service groups are huge to rely on when you have an accessibility issue or disability or whatnot. So service groups in our area, we have like the Lions clubs, Rotary clubs. We have actually quite a few different ones. There are ones that are organized, internationals or national service groups that are really well known, but there's also some service groups that people just see a need and they break off and they start these organizations. But the mandate of the organizations is to help people in the community. So you really need to tap into them and see if they can help. So they may be able to secure a financial donation and just be able to give a donation of X amount of dollars to your project. But if that's not available, and if you don't feel comfortable in asking for the funds outright, you can also ask if they, just let them know what you're doing and ask them if they'd be willing to head up one of your projects or something. So they may be able to organize an event, and if they can organize the event and you don't have to do it, it's a lot off your plate if they can do that for you. Within that as well, if you're involved with a church, I would also recommend talking to your church officials and letting them know what you're doing and seeing if they can work with you. Again, they may do something that they can help with the monetary part, or they may help set up an event or also offer services in kind for helping with an event or something that you're doing. One of the other things, which I guess I hadn't considered for my first one, but you may consider trading in a vehicle. So if you have a vehicle to trade in, that may be a funding source for you. We were lucky with our second purchase, as I said, in that we had the first one and we found a company who did the trade-in and took it off the cost of the next van. So if you have a van already, you could sell it. Trading it in was much easier for us than having to go through the rigmarole of selling it, because we would have had to sold it after so that we didn't have a time period with no van. So trade-in of a van or another vehicle is also a good way to bring in some money to help fund that. One of the other big things that we did as part, which you should consider, is raising money through sales. I can go into some ideas for that later. That may include something that you're selling on your own. We sold chocolates. We had chocolate sales going for a year and a half. I don't know what the final total was for that, but we did raise a few $1,000s. It also got people involved in what we were doing. I actually actively asked family members and friends to help us sell the chocolates. So when I had my mass order of chocolates, they took cases of chocolate and sold it and then gave us the profits. Downside with that is that it was an investment up front, but I know my people and I know that I can sell chocolate, so it wasn't that difficult. And I also was able to get the kids involved with that. Also, the high school sold chocolate. Actually, the high school also had a barbecue and donated funds, so we had quite a few other sources that were great at helping us. And then also in sales, you may consider partnering with another seller. So it could be, we have people who sell, like a lot of, let's say moms, but a lot of moms who sell on commission certain things, and they are usually really good at trying to arrange something where the profits can go to a special cause, or maybe donating 10% of their profits or whatnot to something. So that's worth looking into with them and seeing if you can partner with them for helping you fundraise. It's Jen again. I reviewed that video and I realized I forgot one of the most important means of funding. So I'm just interjecting this in there, is the donation page, GoFundMe, or something else. So I can get into detail on that later too. That was a lifesaver for us. I know other people who have used that very successfully. Yeah, don't forget your GoFundMe or some other way for people to easily donate online. So again, that was my list of things you should consider. You're going to need more than one means to raise the money for this. As I said, I'll go into details afterwards on each, because I have some advice on why certain things worked really well, why certain things don't work really well, which it may work for you, or it really depends on who the people are who are involved. I am available for consulting on your project if you need help with managing or organizing anything, or writing donation letters, funding proposals. Do a lot of those. So certainly if you need some help with that, you can check out the website to see for availability and how I can help with that. I'm also going to, as I said, do future videos on breakdowns of different funding streams of revenue. And I will also take a video of our wheelchair van so that you can see it when I hook them all up in there. And so you might want to subscribe to the channel just so you don't miss that. And I think that's it. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I will be in touch soon with other videos. Thanks.